Hi, everybody. My name is Karine Blanc. For those of you that weren't attending during my previous session, I'm the incoming Director of Investments for the Collective Investment Group. I am here with Anthony Miles of TPP. I'm very excited to be talking to him today. So, Anthony, please tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started in real estate.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. I had a very weird background, but I am born and raised in North Philadelphia. I graduated from Penn State, and then I went into the military. And I spent time as the weapons in charge of the nuclear weapons system on a nuclear submarine.
Wow.
Moved back to Philadelphia and started my own technical training company because I have a degree in engineering and a degree in education training and development. I pulled them together and I got a great opportunity as the prime trainer for the Philadelphia International Airport, which kind of got me really going in Philadelphia. And then I had this bug for real estate. So I started investing in rehab properties in Germantown, built a nice portfolio. Then I decided that I wanted to do it at scale. So I put that on pause and I went to work as a director of construction and maintenance for a public housing authority, which thrusted me into managing 3,000 units, 32 guys, and a bunch of contractors doing elevators, underground electrical. And then after my stint there, then I went out as a private developer.
Wow. Wow. And, like a lot of developers that I've met before, it sounds like you made the jump from starting out rehabbing properties, maybe that being your first experience with real estate, to doing ground up construction. What was the hardest part about that transition?
I think the hardest part of the transition it wasn't the construction part of it, because I got a lot of experience when I went to work for the housing authority. They had like 500 units under construction as soon as I got there. But the challenging part was when I went out on my own doing the land, assembling the land for development. To me, what in the early stages was challenging, but now is pretty easy for us now, 16, 17 years later. So.
Right. Understandable. So I definitely want to jump into your projects because you have a lot of exciting things going on. One thing you mentioned to me about your business is that it's very neighborhood focused, specifically in Tioga. And tell me a little bit about the neighborhood, what drew you there, and then, please elaborate on the projects that you have going there.
Yeah, so I'll just rewind the clock back just a little bit. What drew me there was my previous project prior to this. So I went into the Francisville neighborhood, which is just a little north of Spring Garden, and it was blighted, and that's the neighborhood I grew up in. So I had a lot of connections with community members, and I had this grandiose idea to go in there and build affordable workforce housing. So I had to go through the whole process, assembling the land, doing the zoning, construction, and then selling it. And what I found is that while all the other developers who didn't look like me sat back on the sidelines, waited for me to go first. And then once I created the market, then while I was building condos, they jumped over top of me and bought the bigger parcels. So what I was disappointed about is that I couldn't go fast enough to create the vision that I wanted to. So fast forward to Tioga, while we were finishing up the project in Francisville, we went up to Tioga and we said, oh man, this is basically a blank canvas, nothing but vacant parcels. So what we did was we got everything we could under site control so that this time we can build in social impact. So that's how we got to Tioga. And the things that we look for is pretty much the same thing the institutional investors mentioned earlier. We look for close proximity to some sort of employment center, which we are. We have Temple University Health Science Campus, like 2 blocks away from our development site. They have 10,980 employees who need housing.
Wow.
You have 2 subway stops. You got Erie to the north, Allegheny to the south, and then you go 3 blocks more to the north. You have the new the Amtrak station, which is going to get developed. So there was a huge need, and then there's a huge that's probably one of the most transit-oriented neighborhoods in the whole city, with the subways, Amtrak, and the amount of buses that surround Erie Avenue.
Got it. And tell me a little bit about the health and wellness master plan and how your projects are in there, but also, kind of leading the charge there.
Yeah, so when we went into the neighborhood, we the 2 things that were the foundations of our approach. So the first approach was to make sure that the neighborhood residents was inclusive, and to make sure that we delivered solutions to what the residents wanted. So the first thing we did was we got a hold of every plan that the community approved, and then we just reverse engineered the neighborhood to match up with the plan. So the first thing the community had in their plan is they didn't want any more low income housing. So they said they wanted affordable home ownership units in the form of condos. So the only thing we did was say, okay, we're going to put the condos here. They wanted mixed income senior housing. So we had sites for senior housing. And then the community in their plan didn't want a grocery store. They wanted a farmer's market, because they thought that a farmer's market would be more of a destination than a grocery store.
Yeah.
So we plugged in a site for that. Then the community said they wanted a medical clinic. So for us, it wasn't really hard to get the community to approve the projects when we went through zoning, because it was exactly what they asked for.
Right.
But the second impetus for our approach was the fact that this neighborhood, and Heather, if you could pull up the slides where it talks about the demographics of the neighborhood, this neighborhood has the worst health disparities in the whole city. This neighborhood is 85% Black. It has the highest rate of obesity, diabetes, hypertension, high blood pressure in the entire city. So when we looked at the neighborhood, the new Tioga, we wanted to be the first health and wellness whole neighborhood master plan development in the country. These are the statistics for this neighborhood. It's a food and medical and desert. 18% was were unemployed pre-COVID, and we partner with International Well Building Institute to make this neighborhood a well certified neighborhood. So our project is already registered with the International Well Building Institute, and then we also partner with Delos out of New York, which is a wellness tech company, to integrate healthy building technology in everything we build, complete with air purifiers that take COVID out the air, and all kinds of other pathogens, water purification, and also sleep technology, which will be built in all of our residential units, as well as we'll put the air purification systems and water purification even in all of our commercial buildings.
Wow. And we talked a little bit about COVID, and I'm just very interested in that. Obviously this is an area that was lacking in terms of medical care and food resources. But how has COVID kind of shined a light on that in a way that might actually be beneficial for people like you who are looking to come in and develop in these underrepresented areas?
Yeah, absolutely. COVID, all of these health disparities and comorbidities were already in place pre-COVID. COVID only amplified it. or made a segment. It made a segment of the population, because of COVID, they had to slow down, and because of the media attention, now it was a lot of awareness being built around these health disparities in the Black neighborhoods. But how it has helped us is, we were doing this health and wellness project before COVID. So now that there's this awareness and money that people want to put behind it, it's been very, very helpful to us, because now we don't have to do a whole lot of education.
Right.
When we go to investors or we go to different stakeholders, they get it right away. So it's been very beneficial to our project.
Good. I want to talk about your indoor vertical farm, which I think is like the coolest thing. I'm like, I love agriculture. I've worked in a lot of different real estate settings, and that's just something you just don't see often, and not often enough. So please tell me a little bit about that.
Thank you so much. So this is actually a rendering of what the farm would look like. We partnered with Vertical Harvest out of Jackson Hole, Wyoming, who is doing a national expansion plan to do 15 farms in the next 5 years. They have professional football players, NBA athletes, begging them to put a farm into there, some of their real estate projects. And Philly, they do have a farm in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. One's being under construction, I think, next month in Maine. And then Philly will be their third farm. It's going to be a 70,000 square foot food production facility. 1 million pounds of produce will be produced annually. There'll be 55 jobs that will be created as a result of the farm. And then we're also building 50 affordable housing units for the actual farm workers. So we're really excited about the farm. And the farm will supply produce to our 19,000 square foot farmers market that'll be kind of directly across the street, as well as we'll be looking to supply some of the produce to some of the eds and meds in Philly.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you, is the farmers market able to absorb all that? I think you said it was 1 million pounds of produce. So some of it's going to go to the farmers market, and other parts of it are going to go. That's a good question. So the answer is yes. Some of it will go to the actual a farmer's market, and some will go to the eds and meds. However, with the health conditions of some of the residents in North Philly, our hope in terms of social impact. So when you talk about social impact, the way we look at social impact is actually the actual health outcomes. It's just not producing 1 million pounds of produce. It doesn't mean anything if you produce it. The key thing is to get the people in North Philly to eat 1 million pounds of produce. So our goal is to get them to eat it so that they can change their diet and change their health outcomes and drive their high blood pressure down, reduce the obesity of the kids by getting them to eat this produce. And are there organizations you're partnering to kind of funnel that through, whether it's like the school systems or community development organizations?
So right now we partner with the Economy League of the Greater Philadelphia Economy League, which I'm a board member. So the Economy League has a program called a PAGE, where they work with all of the eds and meds and anchor institutions. So for the most part, we're funneling that through the Economy League PAGE program, which they already have that infrastructure set up with, I think, about 30 or 40 educational institution, eds and meds. They're all in a kind of a collective group, which makes it easier for our group to get contracts.
Nice. Yeah, no, that's incredible. I definitely want to talk about the racial equity and inclusion program.
Yes.
You mentioned you worked on it with your daughter, and I'm a little bit of a research junkie. So when you were telling me case study, I'm like, lighting up. So tell me a little bit about that, and I think it was, it had a great outcome. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when we went into the neighborhood, one of the things that has always kind of bothered me was, and I think this was echoed throughout a couple of the sessions, and we talked about that we, as people of color, we need to own something. So that's the first thing. And what I found in my previous neighborhoods is a lot of the white developers extract the wealth out of the Black community through land. So they go into the community where people in the community walk past the land every single day on their way to work, where the white developers, while they're going to work, come into the neighborhood, buying up all the land and extract really the wealth. They're buying it at one basis and then they sell it at another basis. So what my daughter, we had a conversation internally with our other 4 founders, which Heather, if you could put that up, that would be helpful. What we came up with was our version of racial equity and inclusion. So what we did a case study. So my daughter is the director of social impact and she runs the program, and Alexis Miles, and she went out and got 88 investors. 84% of them are Black, 60% men, 40% women, 94% of them are from Philadelphia, and she gave them the opportunity to invest. I think the average was like $2,500. And now these investors, so what we wanted to see as a case study, which we didn't want to publicize it, we wanted to see if we could help these individuals build wealth for their grandkids, kids, and their families, starting out with $2,500, right? So as a result of it, within the next 60 days, there'll be a capital event. And I'm pleased to say that with my daughter's leadership, we've generated for those investors $2.3 million in capital gains. And as a result of that, the average investor increased their wealth to $35,000 from a $2,500 investment. So the next stage is to take that $35,000 in capital gains and allow them to invest in the Tioga district and move it up to the $188,000, which is the median wealth for whites. So the first test was very successful, and we're very happy about that. And we're looking to improve that.
And what was the timeline again for that, 2,500 to 35,000?
It was anywhere from, for some, 24 to 36 months.
Wow, that's very impactful. And is this something? So are you testing that again, or you're sticking with the same individuals to try and reach that median white income, median white wealth level?
No, I want to say we will meet it. So I'm very confident that we will, and because we're committed to that. All 4 of our principals and co-founders, myself, Clinton Bush, Alexis, and Doris, we're all on board with this. And some of those individuals are my nieces and nephews. So this is a legacy project for the 4 of us. But to answer your question is, we are going to move the first group to the next level. And then Alexis is now open it up for new investors, but we wanted to make sure that that we prove the model and we get all the kinks out of it, and make sure it's successful first before we did it at scale. Now we feel confident we could do it at scale. to allow investors to invest in investments that they otherwise would never be able to get involved with for $2,500.
Right. I mean, that's an incredible accomplishment. So I know you guys will get there definitely. So tell me a little bit about, I know you've talked about your social impact.
Mhm.
How do you contribute your story and your experience to, equitable growth, whether it's people who want to be Anthony Miles someday? How do you help? What do
Okay.
you say to somebody who tells you that, I want to be Anthony Miles in 10
Yeah.
years?
Heather, can you pull up the fellows? And I gotta that thank you for asking that. So the way we the format that we used to be able to do that was 17 Asset Management Group helped us. So like 3 years ago, we always wanted to do a fellowship. So we just what the thing that was holding us up was it wasn't the fact that we don't have the expertise to teach them. What it was is we wanted to make sure when we brought people in, we had real live projects for them to work on. So when we accomplished that, we went to Heather. I think I might have twisted her and John and Fiona's arm, but they probably would say it. I didn't, but I was like, could you please help us put together a fellowship program? And they helped us put a fellowship program together in 1 month.
Wow.
We put it together in 1 month. And when I say 1 month, I'm saying from the time I went to them to the time we have 19 fellows. So we have 19 fellows from all over the country, from schools like UC Berkeley to Michigan State. And these are our Q1 place-based social impact fellows. They're amazing. Their fellowship will end at the end of May, and then we bring in a new group of fellows for Q2. So this is our way that we're able to share our experience and our wisdom with other people.
Mm-hmm. And when you look at the market of, white developers and Black developers, specifically in Philadelphia, what is the biggest kind of pitfall for Black developers or challenge for Black developers in comparing the experiences of, each of these types of developers entering the same market, essentially?
I think if I wanted to answer that, the pitfalls have been solved by the collective. I want to say that. So, and what I mean by that is we have been, all of the developers is in the collective all know one another and have known each other's works for years and have watched each other's work from afar. And what I think the collective has done is kind of forced us all to come. It provided a vehicle or a house for us to all come together as a collective to share experience, work together, even partner together. So now it's a solid vehicle for scale of not only us, but even the future of Black developers. And then it's not too bad on the other side of the equation, they're raising capital to help also. So I think that anything that I would have said, the collective has solved or is in the process of solving.
Right. That's great to hear. How did you get involved with the collective? How did you first come across the members, and what has that experience been like?
Most of in terms of the members, everyone in the collective, including all of the members of the collective, we've all known each other for probably a minimum of a decade. Like everyone knew, like I said, I've never did a project with Leslie, never did a project with Anthony Fuller, but we all know each other, right? I've known the same thing with Taheeb. I've known Taheeb. I met Steve Sanders probably like 20 years ago when he first, close to that, when he started out in the financial space. But so we all know each other, but I think the critical thing is that other white developers, they all have some type of format where either they work together, they partner, they share experience, they even share investors. Like, so they have an ecosystem that we didn't have together because we were divided, and now we are no longer divided. So to me, the future of Philadelphia development is going to be great.
That's great. No, I really like the idea of the ecosystem because, sometimes it is a little bit of a competitive nature, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just, lack of that platform or, forum, if you will, to get together. So how do you think you bring in other Black developers, who maybe you haven't known for a decade, or, how do you think you expand this ecosystem where you can continue to grow with each other and watch each other build projects and that sort of thing?
Yeah, the first thing I want to just comment on your last point. The interesting thing about the 7 developers, there's no competition. It's like if you really dig deep, all of us really do different things. It's like not one developer in the collective like is a duplication. So, and Philly is big on that. If 2 people are doing the same thing, one person got to be canceled. But in this particular case, all of us, Anthony Fuller is clear. He does affordable housing, right? Leslie does large scale master plan development. So everybody's this, so we can all benefit from each other's experience. Because I don't do low income housing tax credits, right?
Right.
So when I do need to do it, I have Leslie to lean on, right? But the second half of your question was what was your other question?
My question was, how do you bring in other Black developers in Philadelphia who maybe you haven't, who are not currently part of your network, but may benefit from your network, and maybe some partnership in the future?
Well, my idea was what I came up with a couple years ago, but I didn't have the chance to implement it. But my idea is that we do a minority developers mentorship program. And then you bring them into a mentorship program, and then you allow them to mentor with some of the developers, and also give them small scale projects that that the mentors can work with them on. I think it would be a little difficult to just throw them in there with most of the developers have been doing this for a long time. I think the mentorship program will be an easy transition for those developers who don't have the appropriate track record.
Right. So we are going to wrap up in a couple of minutes. So 2021, what is your one goal that you are trying to knock out of the park? You 100%, we're definitely going to do this for 2021. What is that goal for you?
Well, I'm gonna lump it together. 1 is break ground on the farm. 2, break ground on the preventative health tower, and also break ground on our affordable wellness condos, which we're looking to break ground within the next 2 months. So, but more, our goal is to deliver some wins to the community by breaking ground on some of the community amenities.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for your time, Anthony.